Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, 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 no, 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 no. Melanated minds with the crown restored. Asiatic truth that we cannot ignore. Honor to noble Drew Ali, we rise. Nationality reclaimed, open your eyes. Hey, hey. Love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, the spark. No more strangers walking in the dark. Research first, let the facts ignite. Real Morse talk every week, truth over hype. This is knowledge, this is heritage, this is consciousness. Welcome to Real Morse Talk with your hostess, Prime Minister Durriyyah Bey. Hey. Yeah, no, 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 no. Yeah, no, 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 no. Shadow hour. 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 You are now tuned into Real Morse Talk. Melanated glow, crown back on the throne. Asiatic spirit, yes, we finally home. Honor noble Drew Ali, we proclaim. Nationality restored, we reclaim the name. Yeah, yeah. Love, truth, peace, let it spark that fire.
Freedom, justice,
lifting hearts higher.
No more strangers,
we know our part.
Real Morse Talk,
truth from the heart.
Real Morse Talk,
truth from the heart.
Real Morse Talk,
that's right.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
Shadow hour.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
Shadow hour.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
Shadow hour.
Yeah, na, 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 na.
That's it. Rise up, rise up, rise up. That's it. Rise up.
This is heritage.
That's it. Rise up.
This is consciousness.
That's it. Rise up.
That's your heritage.
That's it. Rise up.
Never haven't been.
That's it. Rise up. This is heritage. This is consciousness with your hostess, Prime Minister Durriyyah Bey.
All right. Islam, everyone. Islam. How's everyone doing today? I want to welcome everyone to another episode of Real Morse Talk. Today is our 23rd episode. I am so excited about today's episode. And to be at our 23rd episode is just really astounding. And with you all support and patience and care, we're able to get to the 23rd episode. So thank you so much. So we're going to get right into it because you know the Grand Sheik is here and he loves to get into topic of conversation. I want him to be able to have as much time as he needs to connect with the audience. So the thing we're talking about today, first, I always want to always rise and giving praises to our Creator, whom I choose to call Allah, for allowing me to wake up this rising in my right frame of mind with my good common sense, life, health, and consciousness, with the ability to stay on this road, the Islamic road, the straight road, the truthful road, because sometimes it's rough and sometimes it's smooth. You know, someone sent me information today saying that they are under the zodiac constitution, and so I guess that means I'm not. For what they were saying, that my teachings are not zodiac constitution, but I'm not even going to get into that today and what the zodiac constitution is all about. But it was on my mind, and I needed to share that with you all because sometimes people say things without thinking or thought of what they're saying. But what I am on, the road I am on, is the conscious road. I'm on the more science road. I'm on the road with the prophet, the holy and divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. The reason I'm on his road, because if it was not for him, I wouldn't be on here today having a conversation with you. My parents, my grandparents, my great grandparents wouldn't have known who they were. To be able to make sure I knew who I was, to be able to teach my children and grandchildren, to be able to share with you today. So I'm on the prophet's teachings road because he said, I took you to the top of the mountain and it looked like you can go the rest of the way for yourself. And because he said that, that is exactly what I'm doing. I'm going the rest of the way for myself, but I'm going with consciousness, not just believing what others say, because the prophet said, you may believe what others say, but thus you know. So I'm going on a road that I do know, and I haven't led anyone wrong. If I ever make an error about something, I am not too big to apologize because that's what scholars do. That's what real people do. That was people who give information do. Is if they're wrong about something, they apologize. I'll never forget my great example of that is El Malik El Shabazz. When he felt as though that him himself, when he felt as though that he was wrong about the voting information, he apologized. Not only did he apologize, he stated why he apologized and why he knew he was wrong for his thought. So when people make an error, you can apologize. Listen, we are not perfected. So we are growing and learning. So when you make an error, you should learn to apologize and put some light on that subject. All right? But I'm going to open up and I'm going to bring the Grand Sheik to the floor. The truth about the truth about the 4th of July independence for whom? The Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the Morse question, freedom for whom? Understanding the 4th of July, we're going to talk about through history, law, and identity, and through also the prophet's eyes of what he thought about the 4th of July and how fond he was of the Declaration of Independence. All right. I want to say high vibrations to everyone and welcome to Shadow Hour here on Real Morse Talk. I am your hostess, Prime Minister National Grand Sheik Durriyyah Bey. Tonight we represent episode 23, the truth about the 4th of July. Joining us once again is our returning guest, and we have been very fortunate to have him 3 times recently, but 2 times in the last 2 episodes. So I am so grateful that he was able to take the time to be able to be with us for this, because you know you got to get Grand Sheik when you can get Grand Sheik, right? So we got him, and this is times 2. So I'm in a row. So I'm grateful for that. But he's been on here about maybe 4 or 5 times, and we know that you love hearing him speak. We know that you love his point of view on information. So we are so glad to have him on this episode. If this is your first time joining us, then welcome. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and share the program with your family, friends, tribe, and others that you think that may enjoy this information. Every year, fireworks fill the skies, flags wave, speeches are delivered. The 4th of July is celebrated as the birth of American independence. And we know that it's the uniting of the states of America. We know that the uniting of the states is not America itself, but the uniting of all these states into America. But tonight we have a different question: independence for whom? When the Declaration of Independence proclaimed that all men were equal and free, and since that declaration has never been changed, right? Who actually possessed the liberty? Who enjoyed political rights? Who remained enslaved? What did the Declaration promise? What did the Constitution protect? What questions did the Supreme Court attempt to answer? And why did Frederick Douglass stand before an audience in 1852 and ask one of the most profound questions in America history that I'm asking today, that you are probably asking? What to the American slave is the 4th of July? Tonight, we will examine the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, Frederick Douglass, the Dred Scott decision, and how it pertains to the Declaration of Independence, because we've been through Dred Scott, Abraham Lincoln response, which you talked about before, but this all connects into what we've been speaking of. The Reconstruction Amendments and the continuing discussions surrounding liberty, citizenship, nationality, and identity. If you appreciate educational programming that encourages historical inquiry, please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and share this information with these thoughtful discussions with someone else. What did the Moors and descendants of enslaved Africans have to celebrate on July 4th? If it was liberty declared, then who possessed it? If equality was proclaimed, who enjoyed it? If independence was won, who remained in bondage? Who remained in bondage? Tonight we're going to answer with the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, Supreme Court decisions, speeches, and acts of Congress, and any information that Taj may present tonight. The historical reality when the Declaration of Independence was adopted on July 4th in 1776. Slavery remained legal in every colony except where gradual abolition would begin later. Hundreds of thousands of people of African descent were enslaved. Enslaved people had no political voice. They could not vote. They could not freely enter contracts. Families could be separated through scales at any time that they decided to separate you. Most had no recognition of legal or lawful claim to liberty proclaimed in the Declaration. For those living in slavery, July 4th did not immediately change their legal conditions. Okay, and so we're going to bring on the Grand Sheik at this time. So these are some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And I just wanted to open with you and give you an idea. And so we would like for you to participate in the chat. Go ahead and type in the chat, any question that you may have, any responses to any of the questions that you have. As you know, Taj and I do go through the questions and answer them. To make sure that we're making sure that you feel included. And tonight we will make sure we strive to stay on topic. I know some of you all last week were saying, well, Prime Minister, what about the Dred Scott decision? Because sometimes when we're discussing information, you go into other information to try to get your point across. So we will make sure that we clearly, before you leave today, understand our point on the 4th of July and what your feedback may be on the 4th of July. All right. At this time, I'm going to bring our National Grand Sheik. You all know who he is. We all, care about the Grand Sheik. We all love the Grand Sheik, and we love to hear him speak. At this time, I'm going to bring on our National Grand Sheik, Taj Tarik Khatib Bey.
Islam
Grand Sheik. Hold on one second. I click.
Right. Rise and give honor to Allah and to his most holy and divine prophet, Noble Drawley, and to all the wonderful works he's brought unto us. Give Islam
Grand Sheik.
Alaikum to the audience, to you, Prime Minister. And
so good to have you, Grand Sheik, again. I'm just really excited because it's hard to get you. So We got you times 2 these last 2 episodes. So
Yeah.
I was letting the audience know what we're going to speak about today, because I know a lot of times when we're discussing things, people think that we're in argument. We've been doing this for over 2 years with our conversations that we've been having. As a matter of fact, that's how I got the grant sheet to come to the More Scientific with these type of discussions.
Remember, what did I say to you in 1979, that long ago, when you asked me to come to a temple? I said, if I come, I'm going to come fighting. Didn't I tell you that?
Yes, Grandchick, you said if I do, I'm going to come fighting, because we were going over
And
some
I'm still
things that
fighting.
were going on in the temples, and you said, well, but the good thing about what I have to say, Grandchick, is that you were excited about coming and
Oh yes,
to follow the ancestors. I remember wearing your garb.
I recognized the connection.
We used to make your garb, and you came in looking like a Mo. You came in, when I got your fez, you wore that fez, and you wanted to make sure not only was I teaching you about it to read up on it, but you wanted to wear it right, and you had your garb on, and you look like a real Mo, and I was more than proud. So, I'm just grateful that you heard the call, right? You came on in, and now you're doing the work that you were called to do, right? Mm-hmm. So Islam.
And one of the things that I as soon as you sent me notice on the conversation today, first thing that came in my mind, and I talked to Mufti Shamsuddin, and I said to him immediately, I said, go to chapter 1. And like the Prophet Noble Dread always said to us, go back to that state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers. And everything that we're dealing with today, the first thing came into my mind is chapter 1. So I want to read chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Quran.
Okay.
Then I want to get into the history, the real history of 4th of July. And then we get into the politics that's operative today. That's to put it in perspective, because being more scientists, we are always trying to make things better for people, because our forefathers were the founders of civilization. And it's almost like by default, we're almost charged to get on the front line when things get disrupted. But knowing that, things have been incrementally and deliberately disrupted, we have to go back to the state of mind of our ancient fathers to try to see how we got to where we are today, why certain questions are asked today, why the Europeans that are occupying our land in North America in these days do what they do. What is the source of their energy power? Why they do it, etc. Cause and effect. So first I want to go to chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Quran. And I think you can relate to this. The divine instructions by the Prophet, from the Prophet Noble Dread, chapter 1, the creation and fall of man. Time never was when man was not. If life of man at any time began, a time would come when it would end. The thoughts of Allah cannot be circumscribed. No finite mind can comprehend things infinite. All finite things are subject unto change. All finite things will cease to be, because there was a time when they were not. The bodies and the souls of men are finite things, and they will change. Yea, from the finite point of view, the time will come when they will be no more. But man himself is not the body, nor the soul. He is a spirit, a part of Allah. Creative fate gave to man, to spirit man, a soul that he might function on the plane of soul, gave him a body of flesh that he might function on the plane of things made manifest. Why did creative fate give to spirit man a soul that he might function on the plane of soul? Why did creative fate give to man give to soul a body of flesh, that it might function on the plane of things that are made manifest. Hear now, ye cherubim, ye seraphim, ye angels, and ye men. Hear now, O protoplast, and earth, and plant, and beast. Hear now, ye creeping things of earth, ye fish that swim, ye birds that fly. Hear now, ye winds that blow, ye thunders and ye lightnings of the sky. Hear now, ye spirits of fire, of water, earth, and air. Hear now, O everything that is, or was, or evermore will be. For wisdom speaks from the highest plane of spirit life. Man is a thought of Allah. All thoughts of Allah are infinite. They are not measured up by time. For the things that are concerned with time begin and end. The thoughts of Allah are the everlasting of the past unto the never-ending days to come. And so is man, the spirit man. But man, like every other thought of Allah, was but a seed that held within itself the potencies of Allah, just as the seed of any plant of earth holds deep within itself the attributes of every part of that special plant. So spirit man, as seed of Allah, held deep within himself the attributes of every part of Allah. Now seeds are perfect, yea, as perfect as the source from which they come, but they are not unfolded unto life made manifest. The child is as perfect as the mother is. So man, the seed, must be deeply planted in a soil that he might grow, unfold, as does the bud unfold to show the flower. The human seed that came forth from the heart of Allah was full ordained to be the Lord of the plane of soul and of the plane of things made manifest. So Allah, the husbandman of everything that is, threw forth this human seed into the soil of soul. It grew apace, and man became a living soul, and he became the Lord of all the kingdoms of the soul. Hark now, let every creature hear. The plane of the soul is but the ether of the spirit plane, vibrating not so fast, and in the slower rhythms of this plane, the essence of life are manifest. The perfumes and the odors, the true sensations, and the all of love manifest. And these soul attributes became a body beautiful, a multitude of lessons man must learn upon the plane of soul. And here he tarries many ages until his lessons are all learned. Upon the boundary of the plane of soul, and ether began to vibrate slower still. And then the essence took on a final garb. The perfumes and the odors and the true sensations and the all of love were clothed in flesh, and man was clothed in flesh. Perfected man must pass through all the ways of life, and so a carnal was full manifest, a nature that sprang forth from fleshly things, Without a foe, a soldier never knows his strength. And thought must be developed by the exercise of strength. And so this carnal nature soon became a foe that man must fight, that he might be the strength of Allah made manifest. Let everything stand still and hear. Man is the Lord of all the plane of manifest, of protoplast, of mineral, of plant, of beast. But he gave up his birthrights just to gratify his lower self. But man will regain his lost estate, his heritage, but he must do it in a conflict that cannot be told in words. Yea, he must suffer trials and temptations manifold, but let him know that cherubim and seraphim that rule the stations of the sun and spirit of the mighty Allah, who rule the solar stars, are his protectors and his guide, and they will lead to victory. Man will be fully saved, redeemed, perfected by the things he suffers on the plane of flesh and on the plane of soul. When man has conquered carnal things, his garb of flesh will then have served his purpose well, and it will fall. It will be no more. Then he will stand untrammeled on the plane of soul, where he must full complete his victories. Unnumbered foes will stand before man upon the plane of soul, and these he must overcome, yea, overcome them, everyone. Thus hope will ever be his beacon light. And there is no failure to the human soul, for Allah is leading on, and victory is sure. Man cannot die. The spirit man is one with Allah. And while Allah lives, man cannot die. And when man has conquered every foe upon the plane of soul, the seed will have full opened out, will have unfolded into the holy breath. The garb of soul will then have served its purpose well, and man will need it nevermore. And it will pass and be no more. And man will then attain unto the blessedness of perfectness and at one with Allah. Islam. Now I want to go back to the state of mind of our ancient mothers and fathers. And I made a few notes for those of you who are in government and those who are in the study of anthropology, the history of man, and into international law, the intercourse relationships with men and nations, and understand the operations of government and the science that is applied thereto. And when Prime Minister mentioned earlier the Zodiac Constitution is known around the world as being the foundation of the study of the solar stars, the cherubim and the seraphim, the placements of the planetary entities in their physical form and in their scientific form, the cause and effect that they have in relationship to Midgard, which is the Earth within this particular solar system, where is the dwelling place of man at this time for this evolutionary development. In the operations of the science of the studies of the universe, and in the operations of government structure, cause and effect, reciprocity, what is generally referred to as a Hermetic law, which is used by all philosophers from the ancient world to the present. Just give you a little synopsis so that when we're looking at the political arena operating at Midgard in these days, that has logically and obviously affected humanity, particularly the descendants of the ancient Canaanites, Moabites, in the modern world, in the modern time, in the present convenient or convent of operations of Northwestern Mexim that we know in the modern day as North America, particularly, and the effect of the political activity right on down to Central America, South America, including Mexico. It is important for people to have a little bit of knowledge of how government operates. And I'll hit on a few things in the science and the culture of the ancient ones so that when we go over the operations of the political arenas positively and negatively, that we can look at these things and analyze them objectively. Now, I want to make a couple of notes for people to reference while we're looking at the things that came before us in relationship to what has occurred with the mistreatment of the descendants of the ancient Moabites. And you know, the ancient Moabites in the modern days are referred to as Al-Moroccans, which means descendants of Moroccans, and is short for the descendants of the Al-Moroccans or Americans is in short called Moors. Now, in accord with the universal science of the solar stars, as mentioned in chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Quran, the ancient MAs, now the MAs stands for Master Astrologers, and Master Astronomers also. And when Moorish Americans wear the button or the jewel on their turbans or fezzes or on their lapels, MA means Moorish Americans. Now, the ephemerides, which is the chart rule of those who mathematically navigate government on planet Earth, etc., and also in the chambers of government when they plan operations, they deal with energies. So you have physical energies and you have abstract energies. And in the abstract, the study of the universe is called cosmology, symbolized and represented by the crescent moon and Venus, the star. They'll call it the crescent and the star. As a symbol in operations of government, it is called cosmo. In the operations of religion, which is modified just for general solar systems in social order, might be referred to as Islam. Now, in accord with the universal science of the solar star study and the MAs, the ephemerides, which is the charting, mathematical charting that is used all around the planet, always has been, but not necessarily taught to the general public, not because it's not available to them, but mainly because people in positions of power know that if they maintain the knowledge to themselves, that makes it easier for them to rule the general masses. So they will put the science into a dogmatic form and present it to people in the name of religion, and then sometimes just in the name of social culture without explanation. So I'll give you some of the foundation so you'll know how to look at things a little, put it this way, a little bit more scientifically, and this will give us some helps as to recognizing people who are misusing governmental positions, what they know but don't tell the public. So, in accord with the universal service or the science of the solar stars, as mentioned in chapter 1, The MAs use what is known as ephemerides, and that's the star chart and all things that are done in public interchange when they're making international contracts, even when people that are considered of import travel or make movement, they will do a sun movement or transit of the sun movement called a horoscope that would be individually mathematically charted based on real, or what is called sidereal time, which is the real clock that is in the heavens, known as the universal clock. And this is used all over the planet to plan their affairs, etc. Now, the truth of this particular time, which is an ancient celebration by the ancient ones all over the world, and is demonstrated in their art, in their symbolisms, on stone, on wood, etc., in different forms of pottery, etc. And this is where you always see symbols of the relationships of the transit of the suns, etc., and the planets in relationship to them, and in relationship to ourselves, in relationship to the animals, in relationship to the fish, the movement of the tides, the transit of the moon around the earth while the earth transits around the sun, etc. That is what's called the zodiac constitution, the knowledge of the workings of heaven and its relationship thereto to ourselves. Now, on the day of July the 1st of every year, the sun, or the planet Saturn, is hidden by the glare and the brightness of the sun. And this happens on time in accord with the cycle of the heavens. And as Saturn comes from behind the sun, that's the heliacal rising of Saturn. Heliacal simply means sun, or the sun movements. And when you see hear the word holy, when they're referring to holy and holiness in scripture, in Quran, in Bible, in Uaspi, in Torah, Tanakh, etc., Heliotech, Septuaginta, etc., that comes from helio, which is the sun, and it simply means the sun, S-U-N, and is also described in the closeout of the last book, Malachi, in the Septuaginta, or in the Bible. And you see the sun arises with healing in his wings, and it has only 4 chapters, and that deals with your 4 gates, your north gate, south gate, east gate, west gate, etc. This is also where you see the circle with the cross in the middle, etc. And you have your 4 corners, and you have your openings at the 4 corners. Also, that same symbol that you see described in the Circle 7 Quran, where you see the opening there, opening there, opening there, opening there, north gate, east gate, west gate, south gate. It's also where you get news from. So all people that rule, even though they may not speak publicly, they use the culture and the science. Now, if you want to understand the operations of these people who have been ruling North America in the last couple hundred years, keep in mind that they will make reference to being born again. Being born again is derived from what is known as the Renaissance. The Renaissance is where the ancient Moabites went into Iberia and into the area of Albion, which is today known commonly as Europe. Now, the Renaissance is where the Moors were bringing what is commonly known as civilization to the hybrid breed, or what is called modern man, and commonly known as Albions, or today generally referred to as Europeans. That's where they got the science to eventually grow and become a part of the greater human family, the problem that we've had logically, and this can't be denied, is in the process of their evolutionary operations on the planet, they have been in many ways beastly to many of the other Aboriginal people. So when we're talking about the things that we're talking about today that are happening in North America, the cause and effect and some of the history, you need to know that the Europeans that are ruling generally got their general knowledge power from the Moors in the first place. Whether they're misusing it or using it for the good, that's a conversation in its own, which is why we have some of these conversations on Real Moors Talk, because we're trying to make things better for everybody. However, you need to know the history so that you can look at things objectively and actually use intelligent reasoning to aid in us all coming together and reasoning together to help solve some of these problems with humanity. Now, so on July the 1st of this particular year, and those of you who are in government and in all of your those who really study human affairs, etc., and anthropologists, etc., go to your Ephemerides's and look at July the 1st of this particular cycle of 2026 at latitude 47.67 degrees north and longitude 122.12 degrees. And that would be the culmination of 0724 at the setting, etc., and 1342 in the sky. And that would be Saturn's declination, right? And at 0.33 degrees, yeah, and 15 feet 21 degrees. And you can check that to see to make sure that I'm correct with that magnitude of 0.5. And that's in its yeah, that would be in the constellation Pisces. So you would make your calculations from there and also kind of measure what do you think the people in operative government are doing? What decisions would you think they will be making based on those calculations? Because keep this in mind, and this is what makes it very important to look at it as a measure, because you want to look at cause and effect, right? You always want to look at cause and effect. Cause and effect is also talked about in philosophy as reap what you sow. It's that relates to the Hermetic law of cause and effect. Keep that in mind. So now Saturn's heliacal rising, right? Now at this present time, right? So you want to look at the local time. That would be in the Washington area, where they would measure it from the observatories. I think that would be that they would start charting at that time. On the 1st of July, the Saturn starts coming from behind the sun, and somewhat like what you would look at an eclipse. When you're looking at an eclipse of the moon in relationship to the sun, you look at Saturn in relationship to the sun. That would be the heliacal rising of Saturn. So the 1st of July, it begins its heliacal ascension. When it gets into full bloom between the 1st of July and the 4th of July, and that is the ancient and true and original observation in the cosmo world of civilization, the heliacal rising of Saturn, etc. And the hybrid Europeans use that to celebrate the knowledge that they gained from the Renaissance and their achievements of conquest of the Western Hemisphere, the Maghreb al-Aqsa Morocco, most extreme west. And so they would do fireworks in order to represent celebrating the heavens, etc., and the brightness and the dispersals of all of the colors and the new growth, etc. That's what it symbolizes, because remember, it's symbolic, but it's based in nature, actually, and that's their celebration. However, their use or misuse of the knowledge, etc., is a conversation in its own right, which is part of what we're having today. But at the same time, it's important for the more scientists to be scientists that you are, and recognize that that's an ancient upon ancient upon ancient celebration, and it's not originating with the Europeans. It originates with the ancient Canaanite Moabites. I yield the floor. Heliacal rising of Saturn. Keep this in mind. It is always held by the scientists that govern the planet, that this period of time is represented as renewal, and abundant advancement, this particular time. So when they're celebrating, keep in mind, though they don't say it, that's taken in consideration. I yield the floor. Now we can get to everyday talk about the problems that we're dealing with. And keep in mind, you can use that knowledge, that energy yourself. And because they're using it negatively, you use that same positive energy for beginnings yourself, because it is the science of your ancient mothers and fathers. Islam.
All right, I was it was stuck unmuting myself. All right, Grand Sheik. So shukran for that.
As an interjection, I just want to remind people, remember when you know where they're coming from, because remember, knowledge, like water and like the sun, like the Bible says, the sun shines on the good as well as the evil. What it also means that negative knowledge of how things operate can be used positively or negatively. The problem that we're having with the hybrid Europeans, particularly from North America, and also those who claim to be somebody that are not, and doing the birthright stealing, etc., they're simply using the knowledge negatively. Now, knowing what they're using, you can go back to that state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers and counter them, actually, very often with sitting still, simply using your mind. But you won't be scattered about what's going on. That's the reason I share that with you, is because a lot of our people are suffering from scatterbrain, not knowing that part of the problem or power that the Europeans are using counter to us is they keep us scattered, and that's what they call in military terms schism ops. And schism ops is referred to by everyday people as divide and conquer. Their successes has been because they know that most of our people don't know that history of the real earth culture, and think that some of these things came from the European when it really didn't. They just simply hypothecated the culture and then corrupted it. So keep that in mind, and keep in mind the mathematics of what I just told you, because that's easily researchable. And when you're dealing with people in government, understand that they're using it while they're operating either for you or against you at the same time. It's just never spoken openly. So I just gave you some of the science so that you know what they're using. And it is mathematically charted every day. Keep that in mind, because remember, when you're dealing with government, you must deal objectively. Emotions don't play in it. When they're operating in war, same thing. It ain't personal, though it affects you personally. So if you know the science of your ancient mothers and fathers, you already have some tools to start countering these Europeans, because they're using your science. They've just simply been using it against you. That's all. Learn to box, y'all. It's Cosmo boxing. Some people call it fifth, sixth dimension. But you got to know the science to know what's happening to you. So a lot of the things that they're arguing, it is and can be true, but it would be juvenile to what's really going on. That's what I'm really trying to say to you. It doesn't mean that the things that they're presenting to you is not important. And it doesn't mean the things that they're presenting are not happening. It means that they're the lesser values of things that are going on and not the deeper cause and effect. I gave you the science on how to go find it yourself. And once you see it, you're going to look at everything that they're doing, and some of the things that they make you angry about, you're going to start laughing because you're going to see how they're playing you with your own stuff that you thought was theirs. And like I said before, we're all emotional beings. That's part of human nature. But don't get mad, get wise. Chapter 1 is a great lesson for everyone to use. Read chapter 1, then go to your ephemerides, and then also go to say your almanacs, right? And you'll understand why the almanacs that are used every day for agriculture and horticulture around the world to feed humanity is an abstraction of cosmos science. All of it is. But put it together and you'll see the politics. And for some of you who are anthropologists and human culture studies, etc., and the political studies, go to your updated almanacs and keep in mind when they make reference who generally is accredited with even transferring some of that more science knowledge to the Europeans here in North America. They'll write him in history as Ben Banneker, which is a code name for Chief Justice Mu Ali, which is known as Ben Bey. And they have his fez, like this, red ones, in a glass case on the borderline of Virginia, Maryland, etc., with an obelisk on the borderline at the water called George Washington's Memorial. And they'll tell you he's the one who presented the almanac that's used around the world to this very day. So it's not so secret. It's just that some people don't know it. Now you know. So act like you know. Just giving you reference points so you can challenge what I just said to you. You can go to your ephemerides. That's for anybody around the world, because what I just said is known by governments all around the world, and all the politicians that have been giving you all these problems and raping our people use just what I just said. When they wake up in the morning, they are briefed by their assistants on the chart for the day, and they're going to go right to the ephemerides and make that chart. It'll decide whether they travel, whether they don't, who they travel with, whether they have meetings, whether it's in their interest to break the meeting or continue it or to make adjustments, and it's done with mathematics. That's why they say justice or Jesus is a carpenter. Carpenter uses a what? A compass and a square. Keep that in mind. All these things are symbolic, but it runs government. Don't take it from a spooky perspective. Take it from the ephemerides. The movement and transits of the sun, July the 1st to July the 4th, the heliacal rising of Saturn. That's what's taking place right now. And that's what July the 4th is. And by the way, my mother was birthed on July the 1st, July the 4th. And my brother was July the 1st. It's interesting. And her name is Lena Ruth. That's my mother's name. Interesting, isn't it, Prime Minister?
Yes, it is, Taj.
Anyway, so let's talk about, because right now we're in the boxing ring of life. So let's talk about the conflicts, and the things that people, end up trying to, help our people along the way in this converted, or what you call somewhat overthrown republic and we've had that problem for a while, and is represented some of the symbolisms of the theft of the birthright of the Aboriginal people from a law perspective is the two major symbols is Dred Scott. So not him personally, what it represents. That's what people need to pay attention to, what it represents, right? And of course, the William Dungy case superseding that. And then you have people coming after that, working with the problems that they've been dealing with the inculcation and infusements of codes noir into the social structure to maintain colonial operations. That's actually what we're dealing with. That's actually what we're dealing with. So we're dealing with the cause and effect relationship of the Maghreb being conquered, right? So we give the Renaissance a reference so you know where the European state of mind is, where he got his learning from. That's where, and the word Renaissance means to be born again. That's where they got that term from, that people think is just a religious term. That came from the Renaissance. So now you know the power that he has over indigenous people is that he co-opted your culture. That's why they're sometimes called culture bandits. And our people think that everything that they do come from them. No, it did not. They took your stuff, made you start hating your own stuff. So sometimes when you see things taking place, you would dismiss it thinking it's his when it's actually your stuff. July the 4th is one of them. I yield the floor. So let's talk about Freddie and all the rest of them guys. What's their take on fighting colonial? Because that's all we're all doing, fighting colonialism and all of these conversations that are taking place, even with a lot of the Asiatics, even some of them who still think that they're in the black codes, trying to undo the cause and effect injuries upon our people of North America done by the occupying Europeans under color of law, governing coming from what is called their subdivisional real office of governing for the U.S. corporation company called Israel, and from Fleet Street, England, from the Circle Church and Chancery, that's Fleet Street, England, into Washington, District of Columbia, operating in that Trinity operations, because that's what's happening, with headquarters in Davos, Switzerland. Those are the points of reference where that power structure that we're suffering from has its origin. So you need to know the origin of the decision makers that are affecting our people to this day from then. So when you're looking at the arguments made by Frederick Douglass and all the different abolitionists along the way who've been trying to solve these problems, in the background, that's the point of reference of those people coming together and deciding what goes and what does not go. This is why, Prime Minister, I think a lot of people misunderstand when they're looking at, or they get too personal with different political figures when they need to understand how things work first, and then look at these people and recognize, as an example, like I've always said to people, don't look at Donald Trump so much personally, look at him as a puppet, and not necessarily a subdued puppet, but for people who really honestly know the politics, they know that the things that are operating against the interests of the people here, actually those decisions are made in Israel. It's a hard nut for people to accept because they like to think that they have control of the political arena. Well, they really don't. And it's not so much that they couldn't, is that they don't know the game. They don't know how the game is played. And when it's exposed to them by them not knowing how things really operate, they're easily led or misled or put into arguments with each other rather than getting things positively done. So keep in mind, July the 1st to July the 4th, Saturn comes from behind the sun, and the brightness of the sun allows it to be seen even though it's faint. And that is the celebration of new birth and regeneration in culture on earth. Keep that in mind. Europeans have been using it, and they're ruling you with your own culture. I yield the floor. So let's, again, like I said, I'm just being redundant, rambling on. So let's talk about some of them questions that people ask along the way. Then think about how the Europeans operating government respond, don't respond, divert, and understand what they're really doing is keeping you from using the divine energy that's there for everybody to use. We're sitting around battling the wind, and they're using the energy to maintain power. All you got to do is go back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers and use that ephemeral power that's there for everything and everybody to use, and stop being diverted. You know, like somebody boxing, you know, Prime Minister, you know how people boxing and they faint and fake and then catch you with a right? That's what they've been doing to us. Go to your ephemerides and you'll even understand chapter 1 of the Circle 7 Quran better. And you'll understand the politics better. As a matter of fact, you'll sit back and get mad at yourself sometimes of having fallen for some of these moves they've made when they're actually playing with us, because they know that as long as we're not into the science, that we don't see the unseen moves. See, because remember, man is spirit in flesh, not flesh with the spirit. You got to look at this correctly. People who really understand how things work can use that same knowledge against somebody who don't know that. That's what they've been doing to us. This is why they've had what they refer to as the Cretan book burnings. They'll write it in history as the Christian book burnings. They're really the Cretan book burnings. They're really Cretans claim to be Christians. You got to know that. You got to understand they're always masking. They're always claiming something that they're not. They always present one thing while they're giving you another. That's why they're called two-faced. Why do you think everybody on this planet has referred to them Europeans as what? Speaking with forked tongue. Don't they call them forked tongue? Absolutely. That's why they call them forked tongue. But it's an art. It's an art of war. You need to, and the sooner we can get our people into the culture, really knowing the history, the sooner we can, you know, how you chill them down and actually start directing their energy more usefully to help the rest of the world on decolonization, because that's what's taking place on the planet. And we're part of it, right along with the other nations. This is why so much effort is being put forth to keep us unsettled, to keep us under economic pressure, to keep us divided against each other. Why? Because they know that once the Moabites, Canaanites of the north start waking up, just like Saturn coming from behind the sun, that their systems will begin to collapse. This is why I said in the Septuaginta, as an example, about the 7 cities which are in Asia, doesn't it? In the Revelation, it talks about the 7 cities, don't it, that are in Asia. And it represents the time of the light coming back to those for whom it was lost, the real heirs. It's there, but you need to know what you're looking at. You can't look at it from a spooky perspective. You got to look at it from a metaphorical and a principled, multi-layered message from the ancient ones. It ain't their stuff, it's your stuff. They just co-opted it. So go ahead and use that positive energy of Saturn for yourself and stop. See, as long as they can keep us arguing and fussing and all upset, they're drawing that energy. You know, it's like, you know what they do? They'll do something over here and then do something over here and get these people looking at each other and arguing, trying to figure it out. And they stand on the sideline and like a jackal, they take a bite of each one of them little at a time. That's how they operate. They don't even hide it. And we be sitting around trying to figure out what they're doing. You know what they're using? They're using the knowledge of the stars like our forefathers did and taught them And we've been busy for the most part using dogma that they gave us in the name of religion, which is counterfeit religion, dogma. Then they gave us counterfeit finance, fiat. Then they gave us counterfeit law, color of office, color of operations. And I named them. They're not hidden. They're really not hidden. That's not opinion. That's provable, documented. And that's where so when we're looking at these cases that are happening in society and the arguments, understand if we don't look at it with the real knowledge that they're operating under a color. You don't get mad at them. Don't get angry at them. That's the established fact. That's the established fact. It's not opinion. Established fact. So no matter where they direct you, with how moves they make and get us all upset, coming, taking our stuff, foreclosing on property, stopping us on the streets, abusing women, abusing children, and we're not paying attention that those are moves to keep us unsettled. How do you get settled? Because remember, to fix things, you need thinkers, real thinkers, not emotionalists, thinkers. Like the Prophet Noble Ali said, he said, a half has not been told. If I told you everything, you'd go back to sleep. But if I could just get you all thinking again, you save yourselves. And what happens? European come in, start talking about Whiggamore Party operations. And most of our people don't even know. If you ask our people, Prime Minister, about the Whiggamore Convention, most of them wouldn't know what you're talking about, would they? I mean, some of us, a lot of them do, but most of them wouldn't know what you're talking about, would you? Would they?
No, a lot of people don't.
Right. So now you got the Cotton Whigs, which call themselves in the public Democrat Party. Conscience Whigs that call themselves in the public Republican Party. Neither one of them support the Constitution for the United States. Neither one of them do. We're talking not opinion, that's the record. And the people think that they, the Whiggamores, who are claimed to be Democrats and Republicans, represent the Republic, which they do not, won't ever do. That's been going on for generations. And it is time that we start going back to the science and put things in perspective. You know how they say you can't make somebody, you know how they say you can take a horse to water, can't make them drink type thing, you know, that type of stuff. The deal of it is you can talk positively to our people day in, day out, day in, day out. If they don't know the battle that they're on, and if they don't honestly understand the art of war, which is being used against them, not opinion. And if they don't understand these things, and if they're not willing to talk about the real facts of life, the real facts of the politics, the real facts of the heavens and the earth, is how the planet is run. And 90% of these people don't even know what ephemerides is. And yet all governments on the planet are run with an ephemerides. All scientists operate from ephemerides. All politics are navigated with an ephemerides. It's not told to the public, but it's operative. I just gave you the ephemerides chart for the day. Use it. Get out your emotions. Some people call it MA. Some people call it more science. Some people call it cosmology. It is universal mathematics of the stars. That's what it is. It's called charting the stars. Get over it. Get over it. Get over it. Get wise. You know how I say, like you said earlier, Prime Minister, you know, wise man changes his mind. If we've been doing what we've been doing and keep losing, because we're talking about Frederick Douglass, and same problems exist. So that means it appears that we've been doing the same thing over and over again, looking for a different result. I think in sociology, that's called insanity. So it don't mean that we shouldn't consider these things, but we should analyze them and then analyze our concepts about what they mean, and maybe adjust ourselves to changing our position, and then maybe looking at what that crescent and that star actually mean, not just in the symbolism, but in this mathematical movement. So these days, what we're talking about right now, we're looking at Saturn rising from July the 1st to July the 4th in its full bloom in the constellation of Pisces. And more scientists go right to their charts like the rest of the civilized world do and go back to that state of mind, and they use that positive energy for uplifting fallen humanity. This is a prime time to do so. Not because I said so, because the math says so. And math don't lie. Anyway, let's just talk about Freddie and all them guys.
All right. So we want to get, so as I did promise you all that we would get into the 4th of July. And it's really important historically, the information about the 4th of July, because a lot of our people, especially, I find so many of our people, like people who don't want, they want to complain, well, Juneteenth is not our holiday and all that. Okay, that's fine. You don't want to celebrate Juneteenth. You have the right to all, because all holidays are man-made holidays. All celebrations are man-made and woman-made holidays. It's the significance behind the celebration of the day. And so 4th of July is not a celebration for us. And the question that I posed when I first came on the call, when I introduced our topic, was if liberty was declared, who possessed it? If equality was proclaimed, who enjoyed it?
Who's enjoying it? Yes.
If independence was won, who remained in bondage? Who was actually independent? So when they wrote the Declaration of Independence, and it's very, very key, because the prophet I think the prophet and Frederick Douglass somewhere said what the prophet said about the Declaration of Independence: if all men are supposed to be equally and free, if that be the case, there would have been no need for the application of the 14th or 15th Amendment. He said it would not have been needed if the Declaration of Independence was being followed. But as we know, it was not being followed. Matter of fact, it took 11 years before we even got in Constitution, 11 years after the Declaration of Independence. So realistically, if it would have been being followed, then all of these other things that put into play would not have been put into play. But we had to get some discernment on what was being done and for whom it was being done. And so when the Declaration of Independence was adopted on July 4th of 1776, but we know that it was actually agreed on July 2nd. All right, so some argue that it should be celebrated on the 2nd. Some say on the 4th, depending on the time. It was up to them which one, the 2nd or the 4th. But actually, it was not even put into position until August. And so I want to go into those. So when the Declaration of Independence was adopted on July 4th, slavery remained legal in every colony except where gradual abolishment was. So where they gradually was abolishing slavery. Hundreds of thousands of our people, Asia as more of African descent, enslaved. Enslaved people had no political power. We had no power to vote. We had no power to contract freely. We had no power to claim our own property and lands. Family was being separated through sales, and they really made sure they sold off the children to separate them, so you would have no knowledge of self. Because if the mother has 3 or 4 children, let's just say, and you sell each child off to a different plantation owner, they wind up taking the plantation owner's name, so these children would not see each other. So then generationally, you don't even know, brothers and sisters could have been intertwining and marrying each other because of all this damage. They did so much psychological, not only was it physical damage done, but the psychological damage that was done to the people. So for me, when our people are celebrating July 4th, other than what Taj was talking about with the cosmos, our people don't even know that information. July 4th should not be a celebration for people of melanated complexion. We should not be celebrating any independence, because it was not independence for us. These Europeans didn't even think about us when the Declaration of Independence was written. They didn't think about us because they didn't see us as being human. So we were not even included in any of these declarations or constitutions. So Frederick Douglass asked the same question. He said 60, he said this, the letter from Frederick Douglass, a lot of us should learn it and read it. His English was not very well at that time. And a lot of even Europeans spoke like he spoke. English was not really developed because breaking away from Great Britain had a language that they spoke. And then people who were uneducated did not really know how to perform, say words or use etymology or denotation and connotation of words. They were just putting things together. They had no idea of what they were talking about as far as language were concerned.
Gaelic was what they spoke. Gaelic,
yes. Gaelic. And so, what to the American slave is the 4th of July? His answer was unmistakably, "This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice, I must mourn." And what Frederick Douglass was talking about is that these Europeans rejoice in their independence in Great Britain, so they claim to have. But when they independent, see, they didn't think about. They were trying to be free from Great Britain, but they didn't think about the same thing. They should have been freeing us. So Great Britain, they wanted their freedom, but then they didn't look at us and say, well, you know what? We're putting them through the torment of Great Britain, put through us through, so we should free these people. They didn't think in that mindset at all. So my son and I was watching it was the 24 we was watching today. It was the 24th Infantry, where it talks about 1917 in Houston, Texas, when the rebellion from the soldiers, the military soldiers, rebelled against the Europeans in Houston, Texas, for mistreating them. These are legacies and histories that are never told to us. Like, our people don't know our legacy and our histories. And so I think if we had a better comprehension of who we are, we would have a better comprehension of what our work is to do, instead of fighting amongst people. Me and my son was laughing about how the jealousy was so bad back then. If you were not as light, if you were darker than a paper bag, then you were considered less than even by your own people. And how culturally we were trying to adapt all of their habits by drinking, the way they drank tea, the way they danced, the way they dressed. And listen, to be very honest, we assimilate today. Most of us wear a lot of European clothing, and Moors try to say, oh, that's Asiatic clothing. No, it's not. A lot of colonial occupying clothing you wear, but every time you trying to wear, you try to claim something. Stop claiming things that are not yours. That language that they were speaking was not yours. We had to learn to adapt our own language. The clothing that they had was not ours, and their cultural things came from assimilation. It did not come from cultural identity from us. And so we have to stop claiming things that are not ours. All right, so Douglass argued that the celebration exposed contradiction between America's ideals and the continued existence of slavery. When our ancestors were enslaved, when were bought and sold, when families were separated, when they had no recognition of political power, what exactly are we celebrating when we celebrate the 4th of July? What are we celebrating? The question. 5 years after Frederick Douglass delivered that speech, the United States Supreme Court answered another question that took the nation. Who could be recognized as a citizen under the Constitution? That question became the center of the Dred Scott decision. As we know, we talked about that in a prior meeting, that, the Dred Scott decision was based on something by one Supreme Court judge and the Missouri Compromise, which changed history. We do not honor the past by ignoring its contradictions. We honor it by reading the documents, examining the evidence, and asking difficult questions. The Declaration of Independence declared liberty. Frederick Douglass challenged the nation to apply it. So when he wrote the letter to them, he was saying, well, apply what you claim. You claim liberty and freedom and justice for everyone, then, practice it. All right. Dred Scott exposed the constitutional crisis. The Reconstruction Amendments attempted to address questions that had divided the nation. Our responsibility is not simply to repeat history, it is so to understand it. The United States Constitution was written and signed 11 years after the Declaration of Independence was adopted. 11 years after. The vote for independence was on July 2nd, 2 days before the declaration was approved on July 4th. So this is why some scholars are saying that it should be on the 2nd of July, not the 4th. But I don't care what day it's celebrated on, right? Because it didn't free me.
Interjection.
Let me finish
I
this,
wanna be-
and I'll give you the floor.
Mhm.
Declaration was approved and it was not assigned until August the 2nd, a month later. So my question is, should it be July 2nd when they say yes, July 4th when they said it, or August the 2nd, a month later? Because it wasn't even signed until August. So is a document really lawful without the signatures? If it was not signed till August the 2nd, what are we celebrating in July? Because they signed it in August, not in July. This is how they do things conveniently. I'm almost done talking. I'll give you the floor back.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking. While you're talking, I'm thinking. Just go ahead.
Okay, the Constitution was written during the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia and signed on September 17, 1787. This 11-year gap occurred because the new nation had to first win the Revolutionary War, which ended in 1783 and operated under the weak, decentralized Articles of Confederation before realizing a stronger federal government was necessary. All right, so the purpose for tonight is meant for us to understand the principles behind the Declaration of Independence, the perspective of the Declaration of Independence and how we see it, how Moorish Americans fit into this narrative, and how citizenship, we had that long before the Declaration of Independence, because we were American citizens long before they even came over here. We were already citizens here. Okay, so tonight we have to go through it. I'll read after Taj leaves the floor the speech that was given by Frederick Douglass. We'll go over that. We'll review again the Dred Scott decision and Abraham Lincoln's response, the Reconstruction Amendments, and how they really apply to us. All right. And then I'll get into the information on Frederick Douglass, because even though he is not my favorite individual, I can't stand some of the stuff that Frederick Douglass did. First of all, to me, anybody that marries a European cannot say anything to me. And don't tell me you married one of you one time and then the other half of you the next time and all this other garbage you try to talk about. How can you talk about love for oneself and you don't even marry each other yourself? So any one of you all that's married to Europeans, don't try to say nothing to me, because I don't want to hear it at all. The prophet said in the Holy Quran, the Moorish Science of America, he let us know we do not desire to amalgamate or marry into the families of the pale-skinned nations of Europe, neither serve the gods of their religion. So to amalgamate even means to socialize with. So to amalgamate with them or to marry them, you don't have my best interest at heart. So I don't care nothing about all you Moors that's on Facebook with your European women talking about they queens, because they are not queens. There's nothing royal about them. I don't care nothing about you trying to teach about more science, and all you that's married. I don't care about any of you all with that, because you are not in my best interest. Because the prophet told us that we do not desire. So you have the desire to marry or amalgamate with them, and then try to talk to me about freedom, try to talk to me about responsibility and leadership, when you don't even care enough about your own to marry your own people, all right, to marry your own women. Our women, as El Malik El Shabazz said, are the most disrespected woman from every nation and culture of men, including our own. And if it was not for us, there would be no life on this earth. No one would exist without us. So you should think about that the next time you decide to lay down with that unmelanated, no pigment individual that you're talking about. Because you all be trying to put us down, even on Facebook. I see you brothers trying to talk bad about the sisters and put us down. Our strength and leadership is the reason why you still are able to breathe and speak today. So stop disrespecting us and start holding us up. We are the ones that keeps everybody alive and going. And this is how the Europeans knew that. They knew that they needed our bloodline to survive. That's why they started raping our women. That's why they did. That's why they started letting brothers have sex with their women, even though they really didn't like it. They knew that's how they could survive. We don't need their genetics to survive. They need ours. And the prophet said, if we would stop amalgamating and marrying. If we would just stop doing that, socializing with them, they would disappear overnight. But you seem to can't keep your hands off of them. So because of that, you just keeping them our shadow of our lower selves. You keeping them in existence. And in the meantime, you're acting like you're trying to fight a battle with us. You're not fighting a battle with us. You're all for yourself yourselves. And so I get so tired of going, and that's why I don't do Facebook, Taj, because I get so tired of the negativity that be on Facebook about our women that our brothers are doing. And the European smiling and laughing because he feels like, oh, we still got them because they disrespecting their women. Do you all even study the front of the 101 questionnaire? Do you even see what the prophet picked woman back up out of murky ethers? He told us, and put one foot on a solid rock of foundation to lift her up. And one foot was still in the cares of the world where he said we don't care back to go back to. Did you see him lift her back up where brothers had beat her down so that she had to be revised again? That's what you talk about rebirth. That's what you talk about resurrection. The women had to be revised and put back because when women lead, the prophet said that the nation, did you even hear Farrakhan when his wife passed away? What he said that the nation can rise no higher than its woman, so another mother has to step up and take its place. Stop trying to replace us with shadows of your lower self and represent us because of who we are. We have kept you alive for this many generations. We have fought beside you. We have fought for you. We have fought with you. We do never fight against you. So stop fighting against us in your own best interest. Islam. And with that, Grand Sheikh, I'll yield the floor back to you, Islam.
Islam, as you were talking, Prime Minister, and this is why, because, the injury, because I, even hear it in your voice on how, we've been abused, and you already know every man got a belly button. That's why he's called a mother's son. That's the proof of his origin. And I was thinking of Matuaka when you were talking, because Matuaka is rewritten in history and she was renamed before they murdered her. They renamed her Rebecca, just like in the book of Genesis, and then they write her in history as Pocahontas.
Yes.
So Matuaka. So when you because you got to understand the politics. Don't look at necessarily emotional response as people may. Look at the politics of it. Why did they seek to marry John Rolfe and John Smith? Why were they competing to marry Matuaka? So they could make a claim on the land.
Absolutely.
Now, and so that's why the land area, because Wahan Sunukuk is her father. And he was Shakun, or chieftain, and of the Powhatan Confederation in the South.
And they should read that book, Taj, The Story of Pocahontas.
Yeah, that's Matuaka.
Yeah, so, no, I'm saying they order that book and read it because then they'll understand about birthright theft and why
that's what it's about.
Women
people need
to them to the land. Absolutely.
People, the claim on the land is the issue. Now, keep in mind, they'll tell the children in history books that that she hooked up with John Smith. No, it was John Rolfe. And John Rolfe, they took her to Gravesend, England, and they threw her overboard, drowned her. And then by him having the marriage of her, as he came back and they claimed the land, which is her inheritance. And that's what became what is known now as Jamestown, Virginia, along the James River. And of course, you already know it was named for King James. And that's why people need to know the ancient history, the older history, and the Crusades, what it's all about. And also why, from a political perspective, to draw the good energy or the power energy. So when they're looking, because remember, their celebrations, they adopted the culture that already exists. They're using the cosmo energy for what you call push. It's an energy. And that's what July the 4th is. It's not a negative. We take it negative relative to participation, when the real deal of it is they who are taking on the energy for participation. They've traded places. We're dealing with mental trauma, if you get the point, by design. Now, but in knowing what took place and looking at it objectively, we can start pushing off the negative and go back to the state of mind of our ancient mothers and fathers, and reclaim the lost estate. You know, this is why the Europeans here keep muddying the water, and like you were saying earlier, Prime Minister, why they keep saying the birth of a nation. The nation already exists. That's the birth of their corporation participating for development on the nation. And this is why they will only say America. You'll never hear them say United States because there's no identity. That's a private corporation. And that's not a negative. It implies an operation of political unity. Now, because of the continuous wars, and you know the wars have been going on from the ancient time to the present. This is why the treaty was imposed in order to try to bring peace back on the land. That's why people need to know the history. The fact that they haven't honored it, that is the truth. And the fact that it's problematic, yes, that is the truth. But you got to know the history and look at it objectively so we can start solving it. So the same energy that they've used for prosperity is the same energy that can be used for our prosperity. The issue of them projecting a negative thought is for us to reject the energy that's taking place right now. You see the point of, you know how like the distraction to get us thinking it's their holiday when actually it's a co-option. They co-opted the time cycle energy that's there for everybody to use to put us in a stressful state of mind. And so when you're in a stressful state of mind, nature doesn't accommodate that. This is why they keep stressing people. In other words, it's an act of war. But you got to know that they're using what you would call the art of war negatively. And of course it's negative, but you got to know that they're using it against you. But they can only use it against you if you accept it. And so use the positive energy, because remember, from the 1st to the 4th, you have Saturn coming out from behind the sun. And by the 4th, it's in its full brightness, right? So that's why they're using that energy. That's why they'll use that energy when they talk about that period of time. They're drawing the energy from nature. And again, the inner politics that they're having with the signing of the instrumentality, that's kind of secondary. But because the real activities, like you said, was on the 2nd. And people will look at the date from a technical position. They're looking at the cosmology of it all. They're thinking, because remember, in real operations of government, it's not spoken to the public. The public is given what is called, like in a Gregorian calendar, as an example, you know, where they have the months divided into 12, and they'll have 1 to averaging 130. You know, you have the 29 with February, but 1 to 30, and they'll divide them up, and then put them in quarters, and then put them in the quarters of the cycle of the earth, right? So you have the symbol in geography of the earth is the circle with the cross. And they'll place the movements or the transits of the sun into the movements of the moon. And that's why they call it months. The months, actually, the word month actually comes from moon, all right, or luna, the moon. And so they divide it into 3 parts. So keep in mind, they're using the energy of nature for positive projection. That's what we should be doing, not because they are. is because they adopted it from our ancient mothers and fathers, and they got us distracted and thinking that it belongs to them when it's your stuff. So we need to go back to the state of mind of our mothers and fathers, ancient mothers and fathers, understand the culture. And once the people understand it's really your stuff, and you get busy rebuilding your own house, getting your house in order, their house will disappear anyway because they're simply sucking off of you. And it's hard and I understand it because they keep us stressed. But if we just stop being preoccupied trying to follow after them, we're trying to participate with them, just be ourselves, go back to the culture and understand they hijacked it. That's all. It ain't their stuff, it's your stuff. Use the energy. The date that they signed it or not is irrelevant to the reality. That was a political decision made among themselves, trying to maximize the energy of Saturn, knowing that the fourth is full bloom and they're out within the cycle of the energy of the whole Piscean energy, etc. They were drawing on that energy. We should be doing the same thing. Not that they're doing it, is because that's what we stepped away from generations ago and lost our power. We need to go back to the state of mind of our ancient mothers and fathers. Stop preoccupying, worrying about the Europeans hypothecated. Know that that's what they did. Don't get mad. Go back to the state of mind, because the source of their power is more science. They're not admitting it publicly because logically they're colonizers. That means they exploit. So when they use it, that's why they keep us out, because we're colonized. People, it's sort of like if a thief break in your house and take your stuff, he's not going to say, hold the door for me. Duh. It's like somebody steal your bike, like when you're young and sometimes you're careless with the bike your mom bought you, and your mom say, go outside and get that bike before somebody take that bike. And you say, Mom, don't worry about it, because all I have to do is say, stop, thief, bring my biketh backeth. No, they're probably not going to come back. Same thing with European. So if the people keep being fooled because we're the nationals of the land, right? We're nationals first. Citizen is a political category that is adopted through legislation. National is in nature, native. That's why it's called native. So that's in nature. We're the nationals. People that are brought onto the political forum are called citizens. The politics of that social order is called citizenship. However, the people of the land are nationals. It's not that we're not citizens. That's a category of social studies in anthropology. But the people of the land are always nationals.
But we are citizens because we're the natural inhabitants.
I'm explaining it because a lot of people, when we're saying citizen, they're looking at it from a perspective of just the politics. That is true in the political realm. National is in the natural realm. Citizenship is organizing government and bringing people into the organized political venue. And then you have degrees of it, which are from A1 to A19. You can check the record. That's how it is. Right. We're the nationals. We're not the first citizens. We're the first nationals. And so we bestow citizenship. People need to understand the structure, how it works.
And also, if you're not, see, that's the thing. You are the first citizen. It tells you that in the records. And the thing is this, that if you are not citizens, then these declarations and the Constitution, none of this applies to you if you're not citizens.
Yes.
It doesn't say national.
I'm qualifying.
Right. I want to make sure that people don't get the wrong thought.
So this is what
they're not citizens. Right. I just need
to go to your library and pull out Webster's Dictionary, 1828, and it will say the Americans are the copper complexioned people, Aboriginal people of the land. That's the people. That's us. We know that's, we know. So when you go back to the anthropology, we already know from the north to the south, this is Old Amexem, sometimes called Olmec. Old Mexim, from the south to the north, including the islands. That's Almorocans, including Mexico. So that's when you're dealing with the Aboriginal or the natives, and nationality comes from nativity, from native. All right, so the Aboriginal people are the natives or the nationals of the land. The politics that take place in human interchange, you have classifications of venue that's called collectively citizenship.
Right.
We would be called the first people, etc.
And I want to really quickly go to the
Yeah,
chat.
and people need to know that. Then they need to understand that because you have international interchanges, etc., this is where you get international laws. And so when they're operating on the land, these different instrumentalities come to fore based on political operations. So when they're claiming the birth of a nation, that's a claim, but it's a false claim. But when you understand the anthropology, you know it's a false claim. You don't need to argue it, but you don't continue that claim because actually it would be a birthright theft. So really, the United States is a political union operations. It is not a nation. The nation already exists. I just want to throw that at you because what they do, they muddy the words so that it makes it confusing when you're expressing or discussing things that are talked about politically, because now you have people that are making claims. Because remember, the citizenship arguments or claims imply the rules that govern heritability. That's really the subdivisional argument. So then you're dealing with rights and inheritances, corporal and incorporeal. This is what makes citizenship arguments such a serious thing. So when they're dealing with Dred Scott, William Dungy, Frederick Douglass, anybody talking about the people's rights or not rights, you're talking about, i.e., rules of inheritance governed and limited by the rules that govern citizenship. That's what's in operation. Therefore, people need to know the geopolitics to make rational arguments. What you have is that the people don't know the rules that govern citizenship. That's where the confusion comes in.
Yes.
And then the Europeans, knowing that the people don't know those rules, they muddy the water.
I'm not going to give them that much credit about, because
I'm just saying what they're using. We need to know.
Right. I'm not going to give them that much credit, everything, because just because someone doesn't agree on an opinion doesn't mean that the European citizenship, I've studied, I know it. I know for a fact I'm a citizen. I have no problem with that. I know what citizenship entails. The Prophet Noble Drew, who's our leader, told us that we were citizens and why, and citizenship does apply. So a lot of people you can't enforce documentation that's the Declaration of Human Rights, as international rights, the child's rights, any of it. If you consider yourself non-citizenship, even in international documentation, it does not apply. Taj, I do want to go real quick to the chat because the producer did ask me about going to the chat real quick. So I'm going to get just through.
Yeah.
All right. So we got a few people that are just saying Islam important. King Abdul Bey. We wanted to say that. William Lee Lester, Auntie Ray. Is that Aunt Uncle Ray? I think it is. You have to all forgive me. Some of these titles you all are using, I just forgive me if I get them wrong. All right, Madudi. This is from Brother Madudi. Peace and love, Prime Minister, National Grand Sheikh Taj Tarik Bey, and all who care about fallen humanity. Islam Shukran for that. I'm going to try to get to the questions. Ruhab Grand Sheikh and all family. I think he's saying Ras. I'm in glasses. Ras Hupa'at. All right. Let's see. Malik Bey. Islam Morris. Honor to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Assalamu alaikum. Honor to Grand Sheikh Taj. Islam. All right. Dog. Okay. So he's saying dogmatic form. I'm not sure if that's a question from. I think this is Uncle Rael. I'm not sure what he's saying. I'm not even sure if some of this is the trolls and stuff or fake stuff coming. I'm not sure what all that is. Moon cycle phase out, ghost sun cycle returning, spring 24,000 year, real time, refresh climate, atmospheric transfer. Now open the door, Zamas. That's often the same person. Let it be known. Thank you, Uncle Tyra. Uncle Tyra. I don't know what that is. All right, slow mode. African Moors invented writing alphabets. 365, a quarter calendar, math, law, astronomy, and more. All right. Okay. Let's see. For the Julie. Okay. Thanks for the Julie. All right. Let's try to get some questions here. All right, some of this stuff, if I can't pronounce it more, I'm not going to say it, because I don't know at all. Some of this language you all have here, I don't know what this is. It's on Peace to the Elders in Chat Family. The ridiculous once you realize you created writing, math, and architecture. So it's ridiculous. Okay. I guess they're talking to each other. I'm just trying to find a question. Virginia, they have a grotto room with his fez and Khalida Kafa El Bey Akbar and many more. Okay. Morse Pogus. All right. I don't know what some of this is. Okay, I'm gonna just keep going. Someone wants the Dungey case, please. You can go back to one of our, I think the episode prior to this, to listen to what Taj talked about the William Dungey case. And when Taj gets a chance, we will come back for those who might want him to do the whole thing on William Dungey. But you could also, I forget what book that's in, that we do have the William Dungey case in that. I can't remember which book it is, but go to the website to purchase books. We do information on the William Dungey case. And the Renaissance was 1600s. That's the Moors were civilized by Moors. Okay, you can touch down on Yaqub on how the hybrids were created. That would be Malik Bey 2073. We can do right now. We're talking about July the 4th, and we're trying to cover for you all about the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments and how they apply. I also broke down what the prophet was talking about when he did that too. If we get time to do that, if not, we can do that another time. We always have so much information to share with you all. We try to do it in 2 hours, and so. But Taj may come back again, and if you all requested and come back and do the William Dungey case for you. All right, and he's on other platforms too that may have that. Okay, thank you, Prime Minister National Grand Sheik, for all of your wisdom, supreme wisdom and knowledge. And this is from Reverend Dr. JC. Shukran for that comment. All right, the son of right now and down login. I don't know what that is. So-called Black people get to know their African Moorish history and connection. Slow, is that slow mode or whatever? Yes, I'm with you on that. What is the economic plan? So, someone Stephanie 74. That's a good question.
Yeah,
what is the economic plan? Because we do need a plan to get ourselves out of this condition that we're in. Sad energy, lower, love and unity, key to our freedom. Okay, Madudi, help you. All right, so I'm trying to go through the comments really quick because we still don't have a lot of time. What planetary bodies or cataclysmic event caused the amnesia in the first place? And you know what, and that's from Bounce. Let me see, that's Banca 2006. Taj and I mean, me and my son Shamsi was just talking about that, how, because people like in the mindset of people, and we have to come back probably and do another show on that.
You got to know what history
got really into power where they are. And I was letting my son know that this was generationally. This is not happening one day. They just came in and killed all of us and they just took over. No. That's not how it happened, but generationally is how it happened, because as they killed your elders off, no one with the information, that's exactly how they wind up taking over in that. So I'm going to give Taj some time to come on the floor with that. I just want to check and see if there's any more comments that we need. Tribal recognitions, nation recognitions. Okay. And so our people know the nation's Morocco, and we can play tribal games. We must claim heritage only. All right, Malik, that's Malik 2073. So a lot of you have a lot of good comments, and I'm not going to be able to get to them all because we only have 9 minutes left, and the Grand Sheik wants more things to say. But what I'll try to do is, if these comments are about as a producer, to make sure we can answer some of you all questions that maybe have questions. And some of you are just commenting, on some of the things that were said. So we know that the people here are not white. Listen, even on these so-called Asiatic talk shows, I hear a lot of them saying Europeans. They know these Europeans is not white. I think just to comment what you're saying in the chat is that I think conditioned people are so used to saying white condition wise that they just say it, but I think they know in their head that these people are not white. And so what has to happen is you have to practice it, and not just when you're talking to me or talking to Taj. You have to practice it in your daily conversations. Like when I'm talking to my family, I make sure that I'm practicing the language in what I speak. The prophet said a language to improve thy society, which means we need to correct the language of how our people talk. My sister will say kids, kids, kids all day, and I'll be like children, 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 no matter what. And some of my sisters, they already know. They don't even come to me with that kids. They already know that I don't use that word or black or etc. But you cannot change your language to conversate with them. You have to make sure you're using the correct language to keep our energy abreast when you're talking to them. So we know that the black and negative and Negro and all that is negative energy, but we want to keep positive energy on board. So we have to take and use the positive language that the prophet brought us. We have to use that positive language and speak intelligent. The prophet says, speak in an intelligent tone, right? And you will be rendered a favorable reply. So you can't go talking that niggerism to these Europeans and this so-called de facto government. You can't talk niggerism to them and think that they're going to oblige what you ask for. You have to talk in an intelligent tone. And we have to talk about what is our economic plan, because the prophet talked about that in the Moorish literature. I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Grand Sheik because we have 6 minutes left in counting. So, Grand Sheik, I'm going to give you the floor back.
Islam, in response to a general cover for those questions, that's why it's important for people to know the history. How did we come to where we are now? That's why we're discussing these things, and the deal of it is we have to look at the history objectively. Yes, it's traumatic. Yes, we've all been traumatized.
Yes.
However, in order to fix things, we have to look at things objectively. Point of reference. You have to know why in the museums around North America and in the Masonic museums, they all have what? They would have keys to show you history, to show you how we got to where we are now. And I always tell people, pay attention to the Punic Wars, the Crusades, the Battle of Poitiers near Poitiers-France, 732. The battle even up to the Batam Ram on Lake Michigan, right here in the north. They need to know that the land of Judea, just like people arguing about who the real Jew is, right? When you go into the ancient maps, you find that the land of Judea is right at what you call Mexico and Texas area. People don't know that because of the reconstructed maps. You see what I'm saying, Doc? You see what I'm saying, Doctor? That's why people, their concepts are built on miseducation. The advantage that the Europeans have is that they preserve the real history for themselves. That's what the secret societies are for. And then you have what you would call the different levels of secret societies where they have the degrees that they sell to people, but they commit them to secrecy. So, and this is where the critique comes in for a lot of the so-called Black and Indian leaders who in secret, most of them are 32, 33 degree Masons. They know this information too, but they won't talk it. They will talk the Black code language to keep the people pacified or on what you call the social political treadmill, So the civil rights argument, which is all in principle, moral in its principle, but politically designed to keep the people on a treadmill. This is why it keeps going on from generation to generation. A knowledge of the history, how it's used, is how you start putting brakes on it. That's why people sometimes they misunderstand when you're telling them the history chronology. They think you're against the civil argument. No, you're not against the civil argument. You're telling how it's being used against you and what is law and what is not, so that you're not manipulated by people who are using it against you. But unless you know the history, you are subject to their manipulations. That's why you got to deal with the chronology. And so if the people don't know why the Europeans used, as an example, the Alhambra as one of the 7 wonders of the world, they disconnected from themselves, not understanding it's here. If they're looking at Islam from an emotional point of view, and then they look at the black stone, the rock, and then Aunt Hagar, they're absent of the knowledge of Morlu Akanil, and that Aunt Hagar actually ruled actually in the area that you call Mexico. See, so the mind, in their mind, when they think of Mecca, right? So they look at Mecca and they look at Aunt Hagar's grave, the mind goes to the geography of Mecca in West Asia today, but the real history, Morlu Akanil, the high priest, etc., Aunt Hagar ruled in what the area that you call Mexico. The land of Judah is that area. You see them, but in their mind, the way they've been taught by Europeans, in the reconstructed geography, they think in Judea, in West Asia now, that they call the Middle East. You see the problem? But those who rule know the fact that Judea is actually in the area of Texas, Mexico, and the peninsula. So you see the advantage that they have? That's why they don't tell people that they're using this energy of Saturn right now to project positive energy. However, they're using it to maintain the hegemony, and Moors, i.e. the Aboriginal Phoenician people of Old Amexem, Olmec, which is really the true American, should be going back to the state of mind of their ancient mothers and fathers and using the positive energy. It's neutral. They don't control it. They only control it if you allow them to, only because we keep giving it up. But we need to know what they're doing or how we got to our fall to recognize, oh, I don't need their program to get up. All I need to get up and start acting like I know. Start looking at the cosmo energy that's there for everybody. It's there for the animals, the plants, and us. We've been ignoring it, thinking it's their stuff. That's our problem.
Yes, I'm Grand Sheik. And we are going to have to wrap it up here. I do want to.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for doing another goodie.
We always,
we need to just keep it simple. And I know it's hard because we're all injured. Like we're trying to make an argument. We got bandages. They're spiritual. Bandages here, black eye here. We're limping. We're half keisters. And, they keep us stressed. But, chill out and pay attention. They're taking your own culture and science, claiming it, renaming it, and using it against you. And because they're abusing us, we're rejecting it, thinking it's their stuff. It's our stuff. Go back to the state of mind of your ancient mothers and fathers and start using your brain. It's in nature. They don't really possess it. They're just claiming it, and we thinking that they got it because they're claiming it. No, it's there for, how you say, the sun shines on the good as well as the evil, and when it rains, everybody gets wet. Thank you, Prime Minister, for, because, you got to get, when we get controversial, because it counters what people think that things are, but it gets you thinking again. Start thinking. July the 1st, Saturn starts coming out from behind the bright sun And just like an eclipse, instead of the moon eclipse, look at the Saturn coming from behind the sun. And by the 4th, it's in full strength. They use that cosmo energy of the heavens.
But that is not what they're celebrating on July 4th.
It's your stuff, y'all. You know, it's sort of like the idea that the European possesses it. That's the problem. It's in nature.
And when they're celebrating the 4th of July, they're
celebrating nature, and they're using power.
They're not
miseducate us. We reject it, and that's the
game. We should reject that.
The art of war.
And we should reject it because we have no business celebrating the 4th of July.
What they do, except the nature of our ancient mothers and fathers.
Yeah, we don't have any. We should
one.
Got to stop making reasons to say we don't celebrate the 4th of July because they have that day. Remember, holidays are the interpretation of the individuals who create those holidays. They did not create the 4th of July in reference to the that's not why they created it. They created it because they created documentation for their freedom. So don't think that they're celebrating what Taj is explaining to us that we should be celebrating. Don't go celebrate the 4th of July with that red, white, and blue and be talking about some Cosmo thing.
All that represents is the constellation.
Don't go.
All it represents is the constellation. Get over it. You know how you say. You know what, Prime Minister. If we gave an ancient map to the children, ancient map of ancient Amexem, they're just say old Mech, but it's really old Amexem, right? Show them some of the art. Find out that Judea is here, actually, northern part of Mexico and the peninsula. Get it out of their mind of the Reconstruction that is over there in the Middle East. That's why they're doing all this stuff to keep the BS going. And the people find out Dorothy, the Wizard of Oz, is a fraud. Hit your heels together 3 times. You're home. Just follow the yellow brick road. Heliacal, rising of Saturn, July the 4th in its full brightness. Take that energy from the heavens, because the cherubim and the seraphim that rule the solar stars are your guide. Go back to the science. Game up. Next move. Have a great night.
Don't go celebrating the 4th of July with those Europeans.
They're laughing at us because this stuff is so simple.
Yeah, but
we're in the emotions of it all.
We know that the 4th of July, what they celebrating, is not what Taj is explaining to us that happened. If you want to celebrate on that very first day of July. Don't go on to the 4th. Celebrate on the 1st of July. That's when we should be celebrating, and not on the 4th. Also, it is time for us to go, but I do want to let you all know that you can all the time email us at realmorsetalk@yahoo.com, because I know the producer is going to get on me with past time. realmorsetalk@yahoo.com. If you want to support our schooling, go ahead and donate $ to Online Schooling MC. We need your support. We have our new school year coming up. Our new school year is coming up in September. And we need all of you to try to find someone to enroll in our program and also to donate. Also, our humanitarian organization, thank you for those who have donated to Doors of Drew Ali. Continue to donate to the Doors of Drew Ali. We also have our books. You can purchase books at any time at circle7publishing.com. That's circle7publishing.com. All right. And let me see. We do have another one here, show on stage. And we also have, there we go, bookcircle7publishing.com. Some of you all ordered books from us. We're so excited. A lot of you ordered the unconstitutionality of the 14th Amendment and also Dred Scott, which is really good. A lot of the books that we're talking about, you should purchase those books, as Taj was saying, and go ahead and read it. Also, you should purchase the story of Pocahontas. Purchase that book because it's in that book. I have information in there all about that. And I know Taj also did one, but in the one that I have, I think some of the information Taj may have put it in there. But the story of Pocahontas, and we talk about the 2 Rebeccas and the reason, all of that's in that book. This is information. If you all purchase these books, you will have some of the information that we're talking about, and you would not feel so lost. We haven't really published any really new books because we're working on our legacy book, but please go ahead and purchase books. Go to the circle7publishing.com and just scroll through and see what books that you like to publish. We could also, if you do not have Cash App or you don't have PayPal, you can donate. See that donate button right there with the red arrow? You can donate to More Science with GSKS.com. You can go ahead and donate there. And when you donate there, you can put in what you would like the donation to be for. All right. We want to thank everyone that came out tonight. You know, we really do appreciate all of you all support and constantly keeping us abreast and giving us reasons to conversate each week to talk about. And listen, there's so much information out there, so many books that we have written and published that we can talk about. But you can have a conversation when you have information. This information is educational for you to make an informed decision for yourself. The prophet said, if I could just get you all to thinking again, you can save yourselves. It's critical time was to do critical thinking. Okay. This has been myself, Prime Minister. Your host is our guest speaker, National Grand Sheikh Taj Tarik Bey. Until next time, and we'll be here again next Thursday, as long as Allah's willing, inshallah. Take care of yourselves and each other. You've been on Shadow Hour with Real Moors Talk.
Islam.